So we find at the end of Noach, the Torah tells us that Terach had three sons, Avram, Haran, and Nochar. The Torah tells us in Perek Yud Aleph, Pasuk Chof Ches, V'yomas Haran alpnei Terach Oviv, Eretz V'la'arato Ur Kasdim. The Haran had died in the lifetime of Terach, his father, in the land of his birth, in Ur Kasdim. Ur Kasdim means the kiln of Kasdim. So Rashi decided the Midrash that Terach was the cause of his son's death. Just read Rashi over there, Chof Ches. Medrash Agoda Omer, Shalidei Ovid Mes. Shukovel Terach al Avram beno lefnei Nimrod, asher kitis es Slomov. Terach went and complained to Nimrod, who was the king, that Avram had smashed his idols. And Nimrod had thrown Avram into the kiln. Why? Because he gave an ultimatum. He said to him, the Midrash says, are you going to bow to the idol or not? Avram says, I will not bow. He says, if that's the case, you're going to the kiln. Avram says, I'm going to the kiln. He went to the kiln, miraculously came out. That's the story of Avraham Avinu. V'horan Yoshev Omer Belibo. And Yoshev is standing, Haran standing by the sidelines, and he says to himself, if Avram wins this issue and proves that what he believes in is correct, Ani Mishalo, I'm with him. Meaning, I'm willing to go into the kiln. And if Nimrod is proven to be right, meaning if Avram perishes in the kiln, Ani Mishalo, I accept idolatry. So he stood on the sidelines. And when Avram was saved from the kiln, so they said to Haran, Mishal Miyato, whose side do you want? Do you take on the position of Avram or the position of paganism? He says, I'm together with Avram. So what did they do? He's thrown into the fiery kiln, and he was burnt to death. Ur Kasdim. That's what the Torah over here is alluding to the kiln of Kasdim. He died in Ur Kasdim. It's not the name of the location. The reason why the location is identified as the kiln of Kasdim to allude because this is how he perished. Okay. You see a number of things over here. Firstly, you would think Nimrod, he was a pagan. And he initially, if you remember, regarding the Migdal Bovel, he's the one who initiated the Migdal Bovel, that they should build this tower and go rebel against God. He introduced idolatry to the world, Nimrod. And he himself evidently he believes that the deities are the ones who dictate and control existence. There's no one monotheistic being who wills everything. But seemingly, if he threw him in the kiln, he came out alive. Isn't that a confirmation that his position is wrong, is false? And despite Avram coming out alive, literally unsinged, the Gemara tells us in Sanhedrin that when Chadayim, Mishal, and Azariah were thrown into the kiln, although they came out alive, their clothing was singed by the fire. Avram came in, he walked in, walked out, as if nothing happened whatsoever. So we're talking about the miracle of Avram was even greater than Chadayim, Mishal, and Azariah. And seemingly, Nimrod wasn't impressed, because he would have been impressed. He'd said, if that's the case, I'm going to reconsider. But what did he say to Haran? Mr. Haran, what are you doing? He says, I'm on Avram's side. He said, that's the case, you're going to the kiln. And what happens? He doesn't come out. So what does that say? What does that say about Nimrod? Nimrod, he's a well-weathered person. In life, very often, you never know why. If you have a position, you don't change your position, especially if it's something so essential as belief, unless it's proven beyond any doubt that your position is incorrect. Avraham coming out and killing Nimrod wasn't a conclusive proof, because you never know what you could attribute it to. Maybe it could be attributed to black magic, to sorcery. It could be contributed to many things. You never know. Therefore, he said to Haran, what are you doing? Haran goes in, sure enough, he dies. What does that prove? It proves that for whatever reason why Avraham, it's not a monotheistic being. Because if that's the case, why did Haran survive? So therefore, there's no proof. Okay, this is the story of Haran, and that's what the Torah is alluding to regarding the Ur Kasdim. We spoke many times that Avraham Avinu, Lot was the son of Haran. Sarah Imenu was the daughter of Haran. Lot and Sarah were brothers and sisters. So Avraham had married the sister of Lot, and now Lot, what does he display? His behavior. His behavior, as we see continuously, is the behavior of an ingrate. Literally, in terms of what Avraham agreed to do on his behalf. And after everything is said and done, they come back. They have a quarrel. They separate. Avraham is a disseminator of monotheism. And where does Lot go? He goes literally to the bowels of hell, spiritually speaking, to Sodom, a location where they openly defy God. Every evil exists there. And Lot is going there. It's worse than spitting his uncle in his face. I mean, it's disgracing his uncle, that whatever his uncle stood for, he's rejecting on the most extreme level. But before he goes, Avraham says to him, I'm making a pact with you. Whatever happens, I'm here to be with you. I'm dedicated to you. He was captured by the 4 kings. They took him captive. Avraham went to war to save his nephew. His nephew was a no-good. He's a bad guy. He's a pagan. He's everything negative. What are you putting yourself out for? And what happens after he saves him? He goes right back to Sodom, moves back there again. And ultimately, when Hashem destroys Sodom and Amorah, it was only in the schus of Avraham was he saved. Only in his schus. What exactly is so special about Lot? And Avraham, after he saved Lot from the 4 kings, the miracles that were necessary to bring that about, Avraham was concerned and was worried. Maybe he had depleted all his merit, that he no longer had a share in the world to come. Avraham, his whole life is through the will of Hashem to have a relation with Hashem. Now he's worried that maybe he depleted all his spiritual capital. And Hashem says, Al tir Avraham, you don't have to worry. Schor chan limod. Despite that, you have enormous amount of reward. When he went into battle, he understood, unless he draws on his spiritual capital, those miracles are not taking place. But despite that, he did it. What's going on with this Lot character? So what I said in the past, who was the first human being ever to give his life to Bimkar Shem Shemayim, to sanctify God's name? Haran. Haran was the first human being ever be given the ultimatum, either bow to the idol or die. Avraham came out alive. Haran did not come out alive. So you'll say Haran only went in because he believed he'd come out alive. Doesn't make a difference. So after everything's said and done, why did Haran die? Why is he no longer alive? He died on Kiddush Hashem. That's why Haran's not alive. Avraham Avinu, as a result of that, he's indebted to his brother because his brother brought about this ultimate level of Kiddush Hashem. Therefore, he's responsible for his son, no matter what, through thick and thin, whatever he is, he owes it to his brother. That's the reason why Avraham himself went, regardless of the cost factor, he went to war to battle with the four kings. That's what he'd said in the past. Now, just to talk a little bit. Haran was standing by the sidelines and says, if Avraham comes out alive, I'm on his side. And if he doesn't, then I'm on Nimrod's side. Take a look in the Midrash. Why did Avraham come out alive? Because he's willing to give his life for Hashem. So the Midrash quotes a pasuk that the pasuk says, Asher podo Yaakov is Avraham. He only came out alive because since there had to be a Yaakov born, who was the grandson of Avraham Avinu, who would ultimately be the one to be the counterforce to all evil in existence, that's why Avraham was saved. Avraham in his own right, he should have perished and had a share in the world to come. He gave his life to sanctify Hashem's name. But why was it necessary for him to survive that? Why? The answer is because Hashepoda Yaakov is Avraham. Because Yaakov redeemed Avraham. Because Avraham had to live, because to have a Yitzchak, and Yitzchak had to father Yaakov. Haran had no reason to live. Who did he have? He had Lot. And Lot wasn't the person. Lot wasn't the contender of evil. He wasn't that one. If that's the case, he could perish and he has a share in the world to come. Factually, he died. Al Kiddush Hashem, he has a share in the world to come. But this is something that Haran didn't know. He thought, if you're on Avram's side, the supreme omnipotent power is going to save his life. That's not what it's all about. It's not if you're on the right side, you're a winner because it manifests itself in the physical world. You're a winner. But where are you a winner? In the spiritual world. Oh, and only, as we said, only God knows. We have tzaddik v'rado. A tzaddik has a tough time in life. But you're a tzaddik. Do we understand God's reasons why and when? One tzaddik is tovlo, another tzaddik v'rado. Everybody has a different mission. Every tzaddik has a different purpose. You have to contend with different challenges. That's the understanding. Okay? So Avraham came out of the kiln. So why would you say, why was Avraham? Avraham leaves Ur Kasdim, as it says, at the end of Noach. Vayikach Terach es Avraham beno, Pasuk Lamed Aleph at Noach. Terach took his son Avraham, as Lot ben Haran ben beno, Lot his grandson, the son of Haran, they Sarai Kaloso, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, Eshes Avraham beno. It doesn't refer to as. It could refer to Sarai as what? As his granddaughter, but she's identified Sarai Kaloso, Eshes Avraham beno. She's identified with Avraham Avinu, the wife of Avraham, his son. Ur Kasdim, they left Ur Kasdim to go to the land of Canaan. They came to Haran, and that's where they settled. They didn't quite make it, but they were traveling in the direction of Canaan. Then it speaks about the passing of Terach, which Rashi said, in fact, he didn't die then. He died 60 years later. But for all intents and purposes, the Torah says he died because people shouldn't say that Avraham abandoned his old father in his old age. We find now at the beginning, Lech Lecha, Yom Hashem el Avraham, Lech Lecha mi'atzkum l'anetcha, beis avicha, el l'artz asher echo. Avraham, leave your land, the land of your birth, the land of your family, to the land I shall show you. Why at this point did he tell him to leave? You would say that because since the location of Haran, where he's now, Ur Kasdim, they're all idolaters. And we mentioned Midrash many times. And Avraham, his only interest was in disseminating monotheism. And Hashem said to Avraham, here you're like in a cemetery. Just as in a cemetery, you can't affect the dead. You can only affect the living. Identically, in Haran or Kasdim, in terms of your ability to affect people, it's not going to happen here. If you want to make a difference, you go to the land that I will show you. Therefore, despite of what you're giving up, your birthplace, your family, everything, you have to leave all that behind and go to the land I will show you. But why? How did Avraham prove himself that he's dedicated to God? You'd say it's the Ur Kasdim. He was willing to die for God. That was the litmus test. That was the proof. That was the confirmation that he's a servant of Hashem. You take a look in the Midrash, that's not the case. That's not. Midrash Tanchuma says something interesting. A person who's precise and exacting when it comes to fulfilling mitzvah, scharo meruba. His reward is enormous. We find Avraham Avinu was dictate. He was precise and exacting when it came to doing mitzvahs. And because he was medactic in mitzvahs, he was exacting and did mitzvahs with a certain level of perfection. Therefore, he's considered the beloved of Hashem. Shenemar quotes supposed to be Yeshaya, Zera Avram Oavi. The Jewish people are the progeny Avram, my beloved. Amr Abshula Nachmoni, Amr Abyosa. Where do we see that he was medactic the mitzvahs? Afilay of Tavshilin, Shambes Avram Avinu. Avram kept the Torah entire before it was given. And even the rabbinic laws, Erev Tavshilin, which we studied here in Beyo, he observed, he actually said Erev Tavshilin to be able to cook from Yom Tov to Shabbos, even though there was no Yom Tov, there was no Shabbos, he's not a Jew, he was never commanded. Where do we see that he kept even Erev Tavshilin? Shenema v'yishma mashmarti mitzosu kosai v'torosoi. He kept my mitzvahs, my statutes, and my Torahs in the plural. Torahs harbe. Do we have more than one Torah? Harikvanema Torah achas yelochem. Uksiv Torah achas b'shmerechot elav torosoi. What is torosoi? What is in addition to the Torah? El deduke mitzvah shediktik Avram. Regarding the mitzvahs, he was exacting. That was his additional what he had done. Amalek Kodesh Baruch Hu, this is the punchline. Hashem said to him, Ato bedaktim mitzvosai. You're so exacting, and you want to do my will on this perfect level. Ato yoshev movdik avodah zorah, and you're dwelling among idolaters. Where he was, they were all idolaters. The Ur Kasdim, the whole story. Sevi b'yineim lech b'chom. Leave their midst and go to the land which I will show you. Say, lech b'chom. So why did he tell him to leave his artzcha? Not because he gave his life. Not because he gave his life that he would have bowed to the idol. It's because he was medactic mitzvahs. He says, that you want to serve me with such a level of perfection, and you're going to dwell among idolaters, it's not the place to be. If you want to perform on that special level, you go to the land I will show you. It can't be, it's not going to happen there. So why was he told to leave? Not because he gave his life and was willing to die for God. It's because his diktuka mitzvahs. Which is interesting. I mean, the obvious reason would be, of course, what happened. As it says in the Midrash, you want to impress people, you want to affect people, it's not going to happen here. It's going to happen somewhere else. And what? Canaan weren't idolaters? Canaan were also idolaters. Evidently means to be that the position of the idolaters in Haran, where Nimrod was, the Ur Kasdim or Haran, these people are in transients. They're not moving. You're not going to affect them. But here, you're going to make a change. Therefore, although they're idolaters, they're subject to change. You impress upon them. Even though if you take a look in the Rambam says, based on the post, it says when he went, he took Hanef Shesher Osam Choron. He took the converts that he converted in Haran. Avraham Megaris Hanoshim, V'Sorai Megaris Hanoshim. The converts which Avraham converted to monotheism, and the converts that Sorai converted to monotheism. I mean, so they were impressionable. So evidently, we're talking about the numbers. To make a significant difference, this is considered nothing. Therefore, leave that land. If you want to make a difference, you go to the land that will show you. The Midrash uses a term, the allegory. If you have a flask of perfume which gives off the most beautiful fragrance, and you put it in a cemetery, regardless of what kind of fragrance comes out of that flask, there are no beneficiaries. But if you take that same flask and put it among the living will be affected by the fragrance. Leave your land, your birthplace, your family. It's like a cemetery. You cannot affect these people. If you want to make a difference, you go to the land that it will show you. That's where you're going to make a difference. You're going to be among the living. But the point I'm making, it seems to be only because he's medactic mitzvahs. It's not because he went into the kiln. So how do we understand it? If it would have been you or I saying it, because it's not a place to be. They want to kill you. They put you in the kiln. Therefore, you're my beloved. It says the Mishnah, he's beloved because he's medactic mitzvahs, because he wants to do the mitzvahs perfectly. A level of precision which is one of a kind. It says Yaakov Asher Podas Avram. He redeemed him. He needed redemption. It's like you said, why is he? He has a redeeming factor. That means he personally has a redeeming factor. He has to be redeemed, because if not for that redemption, he's gone. The Midrash tells us that when Avram was in the kiln, and Hashem said, "I'm going to save him," there were many of the angels said to him, "Why are you saving him?" You realize that all the other progeny coming from Avram, which are bad people, Ishmael and Esav, all these people. So all the Chil Hashem that's going to happen in the future is due to Avram's descendants. If Avram perishes in the kiln, all that's not going to happen. So why save him? Hashem answers the angels, because he's going to have a grandson who will contend with all that evil. This is Hakol Kol Yaakov Yidam Yidei Esav. When the voice is the voice of Yaakov, Esav is incapacitated. So Yaakov has the ability. The reason why he shouldn't live is because of the other end of the equation, the other side of the equation. We'd have to be concerned, Hashem says, because there's a Yaakov who's going to contend with all that. So who's the one who responded to that point why he should not survive? It was Yaakov. Said Yaakov Shepodat Avram. Yaakov was the redeemer of Avram, and that's why this claim was not enough of a claim that he should perish in the kiln. Pinchas ben Loz ben Aaron HaKohen. Normally, when you trace a person's pedigree, you go back one generation. But yet Pinchas, when you trace his pedigree, you go Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron. Why are we tracing all the way back to Aaron? So Rashi cites the Midrash over there, if you remember. Of course, they claimed, how do you kill a prince? Your grandfather fattened calves for idolatry, and so on and so forth, whatever. The Rechan says like this, something similar to what we're saying. It says, if not for Pinchas' zealotry, Hashem says openly, I would have destroyed the Jewish people. Lo chilises bnei Yisrael, bikinos kinosi, because he avenged my vengeance, that's why the Jewish people were not destroyed. Otherwise, they would have been destroyed. Now, After the Chet Egel, there were all kinds of murmurings about Aaron. Aaron, you know something? Because you did not give your life, we were at a level we could have been who knows where. But because you built the altar and you gathered the gold, that's where there was the golden calf. So all the trouble started because you succumbed and you did not allow yourself to be killed. And you should have. That's why you lost 2 sons, Aaron. So until Pinchas, there were all kinds of murmurings about Aaron. All of a sudden now Pinchas comes and he kills Zimri. Hashem says, if not for Pinchas, there would not be a Jewish people. And you know who Pinchas is? Pinchas is the grandson of Aaron. If not for Aaron, there wouldn't be a Pinchas. If there wouldn't be a Pinchas, there wouldn't be a Jewish people.
He corrected his sin.
Therefore, you keep your mouth shut. There's no murmurings here. So it's similar. So just as Yaakov redeemed Avraham, even though Avraham had nothing to do with that other side of the equation, here was due to what? Because Aaron did make a mistake. He should have given his life. Doesn't make a difference, but it's the same concept. That quelled the murmurings, because if not for Pinchas, if not for Aaron, there wouldn't have been a Pinchas.
Rabbi,
That a number of times we find that doing chesed is mahapech, giving madnas aniyim, giving the tithes to the poor, to the Kohen, to the Levi, is mahapech midas ha din l'midas harachmim. It overturns the attribute of justice to the attribute of rachmim. Why? So we'd explained in the past, where does Rashi bring it? He brings a number, but we find by the after once his vidi meiser, you distribute the tithes in the 4th year to the various parties who were supposed to receive it. We say hashkifano mimon kochva. You should gaze from your heavenly abode, overich es Yisrael. You should bless the Jewish people. So Rashi over there says, where do we find the term vayashkev, hashkafa? When the Malachim went to Sodom to destroy the Sodom, it says vayashkev al pnei Sodom. What's hashkafa? Gazing. That means it's a look where you look with a very specific. You see every detail. That's midas hadin. It's an exact evaluation. It's exacting. So that same term is used regarding after you give the various tithes to the poor, to the Levi, to so on and so forth. Hashkifa nomim kodshom. So from here we see the same term used on the most extreme level to bring about the exactness of din is used to bring rachmim. Why? So we explained. You're walking down the street. Who do people notice? People notice the rich people. Who do you want to rub shoulders with the rich guy. The person's a nobody, a nothing. He has what he barely has. He doesn't have what he. Who looks at him? If you go out of your way and you relate and you feel his pain or his lack, and you address that, you're using the midah, that characteristic of hashkifa, in the most positive. And there's always midah connected midah. Even though there is a basis to do that exact audit, which ultimately will bring about condemnation, because you're using that attribute, that characteristic, to be concerned and address somebody's need. Therefore, it's Hashem, based on measure for measure, that activates the most advanced level of rachmim. That's what we had said.
And that characteristic is the gazing to be
gazing, it's noticing things other people wouldn't normally notice. That's the measure for measure. Avraham Avinu, he went into the kiln. First of all, why did he go into the kiln? That means he had an appreciation for monotheism, that it wasn't worth living unless you could do the will of God. If you have to live as a pagan, even if a person lives like a Marano, inwardly you're a believer, outwardly you live like a Christian. I'm willing to die. I don't want to live that way. Yeah, Avraham Avinu was genuine at every level of his behavior, feeling, And so where did it emanate from? The basis of the reason why he was dedicated even to give his life, which he was the first person to give his life. I mean, he didn't perish, his brother perished. It was only rooted in the
yortzeit, hey Mar Cheshvan, Bishvil Ha'aba, Bible
No.
that
Jay,
Hold on 1 second.
you gotta silence it.
You gotta go on mute, Jay.
Okay, I silenced it. Okay. He took it off. Okay. So what I'm saying is, why did he tell him to leave? He only merited to be who he was. You only grow. One doesn't grow if you do things in generalities. You have to do things correctly. And the more you appreciate something, what is correct, what's not correct, then you're even more careful and you're more precise. So because of that, the precision emanated, which only indicated to what degree Avraham esteems and reveres God's will. That every detail has that degree of value, and if he doesn't meet that grade, he's not serving God appropriately. And therefore God says, the Gemara says in Marcus, also, whatever path you want to choose, God takes you on that path. He wanted to be on the path of exactness, perfection. God says, being where you are now, you can't achieve that. And because you have that characteristic, where are you going to be effective? It's in Canaan. Because they're going to be impressed with you or affected by you. Here, they're not going to be affected. They're going to reject you. And it's like pushing a boulder up the hill. You're not going to succeed.
Rabbi, I have 2 questions.
1 second. One opinion is that after the victory, and the king of Sodom says, give me the people, you take the material, the spoils. So Avraham says, I will not take anything, not a thread, not a bootstrap. So the Gemara says in the Dorim, because Avraham did not take the people and bring them under the wings of Shechina, Hanfei Shechina, they went back to Sodom and they fell to a level of no return. And that's ultimately why they were destroyed. And because Avraham could have saved them, and he did not, spiritually speaking, that's why they were destroyed. Therefore, we, as Jews, we went to Egypt. His descendants went to Egypt to become idolaters, to become pagans. Yeah, that's one position. And the other,
There's some measure for that associated with that?
Yes. That's the measure for measure.
Measure because he didn't save them from sinking, so Hashem's going to make us sink?
No. You need a merit. You need a special merit for certain things. As you don't have that merit, as you weren't concerned for them, I'm not going to bat for you to save your children. There's a certain spiritual defect in your genetic profile.
In Avraham, because
in Avraham, and we being his descendants, that genetic defect manifests itself that we had to go to Egypt, and it had to be purged from us.
And so the genetic defect, notwithstanding the fact that Avraham, in theory, is concerned for Lot, even though by rights.
What about Sodom? And he had the opportunity. He had all the people. He was the victor. He could have taken them. He could have slapped the king of Sodom and said, look, you're not getting anything. You keep your wealth, I'm taking the people, and I'm going to convert them to monotheism.
So because he didn't demonstrate that concern.
More than demonstrate, he could have made that difference. He did not make that difference.
And so therefore Hashem is going to sort of turn his face away from us while
and we're not going to merit that divine protection not to fall to that level. So, and that's why I explained, why did Avraham go to task, take God to task? Maybe the 50 tzaddikim, 45 said, why? Well, why is he so? Because Avraham understood that if he doesn't win this debate with God, the Jews are going to Egypt. He understood it. So this was his last chance. Once Sodom is destroyed, it's over. That was the last nail in our coffin. We're all going to Egypt.
So that's one concept as to why we went to Egypt. The other was the inappropriate question, yes?
Right, correct. It's 2 positions in the Gemara, right. Okay.
And yet he didn't ask the ultimate.
Good.
Abraham demonstrated the restraint when he didn't ask a question about Yitzhak being killed, even though Yitzhak was supposed to be the successor and the propagator of the Abrahamic line. Yet we get taken to task and sent to Egypt because he asked a different inappropriate question, which I
Well,
would think.
the first question he asked was before the Akedah. Was before the Akedah.
And so you would have thought that he redeemed himself,
The
if
question,
you will.
this should have been a correction on that. That's your
Yes.
right? Okay. The Gemara tells us in Brochus, the first human being ever to refer to Hashem as master was Avraham Avinu. He called God Abni, first human being. Right after he had that level of recognition, you know what question he asked? He asked this question. He refers to Hashem master, meaning, and he's the first human ever to acknowledge God as master. That means nothing happens in existence only because he wills it, and it's much more than that. That level of recognition. So if that's the case, the question's an inappropriate question. What do you ask that kind of question? Mo'eda, how do I know? If you see God in that through that lens, the question is inappropriate. The timing it's like almost like contradictory. If it's that, how do you ask that question? So therefore, later it's a whole different understanding. There was a different kind of question. I promise you, your child's gonna be like the stars of the heavens, so on and so forth. Now I'm telling you to end it all. You have a question, but it's a different kind of question. If you take a look at the Midrash, Avraham Avinu knew that there is an answer to the question. There's an answer to the question. How do you reconcile the two? The only one who can answer that question is only through divine intelligence. Only God can answer the question. But he knew there was a question, but it was a different kind of question. How do I reconcile the two? That was the question there. The original question was, but how do I know you're going to carry through? God says no strings attached. But maybe there are strings attached. If God says there's no strings, what you accusing me there's strings attached over here. Therefore, it was a different kind of question initially. So one was tinged with a certain lack of appropriate respect. Therefore, Hashem says, your children go to Egypt because of that. It's not going to quite be like you want it to be. Okay. Let's see the halacha.